Awesome. Here we are. Hello. Welcome to the Soul's Kitchen podcast. My name is Lisa Wilby. Episode 24. I'm so happy to welcome James Mullinger, comedian, and so much more. Hi, James.
Hi, Lisa. It's very nice to see you
Oh my
and
God.
connect with you in this way.
Yeah, it's so great. I'm so glad that you wanted to come on. Basically, my podcast is all about having conversations with people who are living their soul's desire or purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I thought of you, reached out, you answered me so lovely. Thank you so much. I know you're so busy doing what you do. So, what I'm curious about, James, is, and I know you came from England.
Yeah.
You met for love. I think you met someone from St. John. Is that
Yes,
right?
that's right. Yeah, well, my wife grew up on the Kingston Peninsula, just outside St. John, and she went to St. John High, and then at about 17 years old, she left and moved to Toronto for a few years, then moved to London, which is where her grandmother's originally from. And,
Right.
and yeah, we met there in the year 2000, had 14 wonderful years together there. But then when our second
I,
child was born, we
I
wanted a
thought you were
better.
going to thought you were going to say you had 14 children.
Oh, well,
Just kidding.
working on it,
I'm
yeah.
kidding.
Uh,
And your
yeah.
second child was born. Sorry for the
Yeah,
interruption.
no, yeah, and just wanted a different and better quality of life. So in
Mm,
2014, we moved here to Rothesay, New Brunswick.
nice.
Hmm.
So you're a comedian. That's what we're saying that you
Hmm.
are. I mean, you're
Hmm.
other things too. I know you do a podcast and you co-edit a magazine with your
Yes,
wife, but your main thing is comedian. So were you a comedian when you got here?
yes. So
Before you got here?
I've
Hmm.
been a comedian in England for about 10 years when we moved here, with varying levels of success and failure, as is the nature of the beast. Um, I was working for GQ magazine during the day.
Right.
I mean, again, in many ways, it's funny. We came here to be, in some ways, a slower pace. We always knew we would
Hmm.
be busy, but I'd say we're busier now than ever. But then, I mean, when we were in London, I was working for
Yeah.
GQ as the photo director and comedy editor. So I had two jobs there. I had a TV show which I would film at weekends and in lunch breaks and evenings, and also most nights perform stand-up comedy. So, I mean, we were extremely burnt out and busy there. But
Hmm.
yes, but I started doing stand up in 2005. So now, yeah, I just celebrated 20 years doing stand up.
Wow, that's amazing. I did a workshop with another company, theater company here that did a comedy workshop. I had to do 5 minutes by
Mhm.
myself, and I mean, I don't know how you do it, but it's
Well,
amazing.
well, I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's my first gig was obviously, terrifying, and then my
Right.
subsequent, 100 were, not easy, and in some cases absolutely, horrific and disastrous. And you go through all the usual things, getting booed off stage and everything
Oh
else,
my goodness.
and you just get better at it. And I'm a great believer that anyone can do stand up. Like, there was nothing about me as a child that
Right.
conveyed that this is what I was going to do. I was not outgoing. I was certainly not the class clown. Didn't have any, if any, friends. I was very, very socially uncomfortable. And in some ways, I still am now in private social settings. But I'm a great believer. You do something enough times, you can get good
Mm-hmm.
at it. So, for example, I mean, to my mind, when I look at what certain people do, I could never, for example, I couldn't imagine being able to fix a car. Like, when I look at a mechanic
Right.
working, I'm like, these people are geniuses. Like, how do they get
Yes.
under, um, how do they know how to do these things? Now, I'm assuming that maybe if I did it every day for 10 years, maybe I'd be able to figure it out, but I don't know. So I'm a great
Right.
believer that really anyone can do it. And I think really with comedy, it's simply a case of, like, when I started out, there was tons of obviously other comedians starting around the
Mm-hmm.
same time. We're all doing the same open mic spots. Some of them were really, really, really great comedians who, just for whatever reason, and far better than I was, but they couldn't handle the knockbacks and the onstage deaths and the kick and all of the. And so really with comedy, it's just and like with anything, who's willing to stick it out the longest. And I've read
Right.
recently, this is a theory that I've read. I mean, I was at the time undiagnosed ADHD, and I had no idea that I had it, and only got diagnosed year before last, but they say
Okay.
that it's an ADHD thing where you're attracted to, or drawn to dangerous things or drawn to things that scare you because you need that kind of that dopamine. Um,
Okay.
and possibly that is why so many comedians, professional comedians, have ADHD. That they are willing to go through multiple knockbacks, and of course, I mean that same aspect of ADHD is why people with ADHD often end up in destructive relationships or have alcoholism or drug abuse issues. But that it's that same thing. But luckily, with stand-up comedy, you're kind of drawn to this thing that is dangerous and terrifying, but one hopes not physically harming in the long term.
Right. Well, I was going to say also, because you're essentially a storyteller, it's a healthy way to get out what you need to get out or do as a person with ADHD. Yes.
Totally, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but you're an amazing storyteller. That's one thing I learned when I did that comedy workshop. It's like there's many different ways you can go, but essentially you're telling a story, and hopefully it's funny along the way. Well, you're very funny. So I'm really fascinated how, like you said, you were hoping to be less busy, but you're busy.
Yeah,
You're everywhere. I can't go on Facebook without seeing you got comedy shows. You're on a TV show. There was a clip of you here, and then you've got the magazine. So is it, when you get home from that life, is it a little less busy, like in the, you know what I mean, like with the smaller town kind of thing?
I mean, I'd like to say so. But I mean, I do try and carve out, quality time with, with family and with the kids.
Yeah.
But I mean, we are just as busy at home, and we are sat here, you know, basically producing the magazine. I mean, it's two of us trying to, with two other team members, but basically it's four of us doing like 50 people's jobs.
Right.
So,
Wow.
I mean, quite often, like and in a normal day, I'm doing so many things. I might be doing a podcast like this. I might be doing a TV interview. I'm also writing a second book right now, but then I'm also constantly promoting the first book. I mean, just in the last couple of months only, I've released my new comedy album.
Awesome.
This,
Yeah.
this is my
Let's see.
my book.
Hold on. Hold slower. Slower.
I'll go slower. I'm just grabbing the magazines as well. But
Okay. You can show the book again if you don't mind. That was
yes,
really
of course.
fast.
Yeah. So this was this is the book. It's called
Perfect. Awesome.
Brit Happens, Living the
Great.
Canadian Dream. I'm writing a follow-up now, which is about late in life ADHD diagnosis.
Okay.
And then this is the
That's
magazine
beautiful
that we
magazine.
published.
Yes.
And so I mean, in a normal day, like even on a show day, I'll have multiple meetings, interviews. I'll be writing. I'm also quite meticulous in I like every tour show to be different. So I'm always writing very specific jokes for that place. So on Saturday, I was in Windsor, Nova Scotia. I spend the whole day meeting people and digging around and researching and trying to get local references that I can surprise the audience with. But it's quite common for me to be sat backstage in a theatre, and my opening act might be on stage, and I'll be sat there writing an article for the magazine or a chapter for the next book.
Wow.
And because I have it in my head, like I mean to give you an example, I mean this is what my diary looks like.
Oh my God. Okay.
That's the schedule for a month. And then within that, I'm kind of making lists. So every day I make like a list of all the things I need to do. And because I'm such a stickler for it, I can't be happy unless I've ticked everything off that I was supposed to do. So before I go on stage, I might be bashing out the article and I'm getting ready to send it to a proofreader. And I'll hear the opener on stage going, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the headliner." And I'll be like, "I've got to finish it quick. And I'll be quick. Send. Put your hands together for James Mullinger. And then I run out. Yeah. And then it's on stage for 2 hours. Yeah. And then when I'm back in, and I guess to answer your question, part of why it doesn't feel like work is that all these things are my hobbies. Like I never... I when I was a kid, I liked creating things. I would make my own magazines when I was like 7 years old. I would cut out pages. I would write little words. My parents still have all these little magazines I made when I was a kid. I was always writing stories, always writing jokes, on a typewriter when I was like 11 years old. So really making things and creating things has always been my hobby. So the reason it doesn't stress me out so much that I'm kind of sat at this desk sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'll get up early and do a ton of stuff before getting the kids up for school, or when I come in from a show and it might be 1 a.m, I'll sit down and I've got an idea, I'll write it down. Is that it's all my hobby, it's all what I love. So
well, that's fascinating, that you were able to make it your life's work too.
Yeah,
You know?
that's definitely something that I feel, like I'm not someone that necessarily, feels confident, but I definitely feel the one thing I will, pat myself on the back for, I guess, for want of a
Mhm.
better phrase, is, I never in a million years thought that I'd be able to, feed a family telling jokes for a living, and I feel very happy that
That's
happened.
amazing. Yeah.
That's my kind of greatest. That's if ever I'm feeling down, that's what I kind of tell myself.
Right. Okay. So can I just ask you, um, how did you like? I just sort of what you said about when you go to a new town, you like immerse yourself there. So you're just
Mm.
really doing it the day of. How did you do it when you got here? Like you know so much about New Brunswick, not only just about the culture, but also the history.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it just something that you just started like just
I,
dove into and did it?
well, I would say it's definitely partly my upbringing. Like as a kid, like we never went on. I didn't go over. I'd never been abroad until I was like, you know 2021, and
Mhm.
so growing up, we all went on. My parents are very curious people and very interested in like uh it's small towns and history. So basically, our whole childhood was really spent. And my dad also used to sell secondhand books. So I would, from a very young age, would be driving around the country, going to small towns. I'd be sat on his stall, like reading books about this town. They were very curious people, always wanting to know what was happening. So I think, uh, and so that part of my personality comes from them. I think about just being
Okay.
very curious and interested in places,
Mm.
and it's amazing what you can learn in a day. Like, I mean, on Saturday night, I mean, the crowd could not believe the stuff I knew about Windsor. Right,
Right.
right down to like name checking a bar that had closed in the 1970s, where which was known for lots of fights breaking out. Little things like that, and I think that came from my parents. Then also the other thing that came from my parents is that they were people who liked to sh- share their appreciation for things. So there's a cutting I
Mm.
have somewhere behind me on a wall, um, which is when it's a newspaper cutting of my mum standing outside our small house in Maidenhead where I grew up, and she's being held up by six in England we call them bin men, but I guess here they're called refuse men, the garbage
Hmm.
the men
The
on the
garbage,
garbage truck, yeah,
garbage man. Yeah.
and she's being held up by all of them, and the headline says something like Margaret Mullinger with her heroes. And basically, she became aware when I was a baby. She became aware that the garbage men were being really quiet outside our house because they knew that my mum had a newborn baby in there,
Oh,
and so
yeah.
her go to was to then write a letter to the local newspaper, the Maidenhead Advertiser, to say, oh my goodness, these men are heroes, like they're so
Right.
kind, and so the newspaper sent them round for a photo op, and again, I kind of, the reason that stands out in my memory is that really I've devoted my life to wanting to celebrate things. It's why we did the magazine. It's to celebrate Atlantic Canadians doing great
Yes.
things in my shows. Part of what I like to enforce in my comedy is this inclusivity where I want everyone in the audience to feel welcome. Like, and that's not to say that
Yeah.
I disagree with other forms of comedy, but my personal style is that I'm the butt of every joke. Any references I make to towns, it's a celebration of that place. It's
Right.
not a roast. Um,
Right.
and I think possibly because I was picked on growing up, the thought of someone coming to a show and me making a joke and someone being upset by it. And again,
Yeah.
that's not to say that I have a problem with,
Right.
the comedians like, Jimmy Carr or Dave Chappelle or whoever that want to
Mhm.
say whatever they want to say. But for me, I couldn't sleep at night if I thought I'd upset someone.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit. Well, I was going to say two things. One, I think Canadians aren't really good at celebrating themselves. We're not kind of like we're a little bit humble, I guess.
Modest. Yeah. Very
So when
modest.
someone comes along like you and you want to point out all those amazing things, like it's really fun,
Oh, that's
you
nice.
know,
Thank you.
for someone else to do it. And also, I had another thought, but I lost it. That's okay. It'll come back to me.
Yeah.
But the fact that you want to know those little things about all those little details, I think that's really heartwarming. And I think people really appreciate that, especially now.
Well, yeah, no, but that's very
You
nice of you to
know?
say. And I think part of it is that, I can't believe that I get to do this for a living. I'll never stop appreciating it. And I can't believe how I'm just so incredibly grateful that people want to come out to the shows and laugh and have fun with me. And so, for me, it makes sense. And also from a selfish egomaniac standpoint, nothing gets a bigger laugh than when you hit them with a surprise local reference,
Yes.
and so the feeling I get on stage, I think my show on Saturday night was maybe an hour and 45, hour and 50 minutes, without question. And it's a weird thing because you spend a lot of time working and honing. This I've got. Well, this is my. I'll just show you my current tour note. This is
Oh,
the current show. Like this is
oh my goodness.
yeah, like this is how many jokes I write just to get it right. Pages and that one on top's the Windsor one, and I go through and
Okay.
work out what worked and what didn't work. But yeah, no matter how perfect a joke is, a joke that you wrote that day about that town is the one that will get the
Is
biggest
the one.
laughs. Yeah.
Well, and I think you like by now you have a style, so you're keeping that style. So you're just finding out, and you must be somewhat of a historian because I did a history walk with you once in Fredericton,
Yes,
and
yeah.
I found out more about my town. I'm from here. I was born here, and the
Well,
first
that's
things I found out that I went on to tell people, did you know? And there's
well,
this guy from England telling me about
that's
my
very
town. No, it's awesome.
that's really kind.
Yeah.
And and on that walk, obviously, I guess John LaRue was the one with the real knowledge, and I was, but
Oh,
I guess
really?
there is some stuff that there is some stuff I know. I guess one thing someone said a similar thing to me on Saturday night after the show.
Mm,
I was at the merch table and signing books and so forth, and I realized that anytime someone says they're from a place, if it's in the Maritimes,
mhm.
I can tell a story about that place. Like,
Right.
there's very few places like so. I'm trying to give an example, but yeah, like um, if someone mentions a place, I can say, "Well, did you know that this
Mm,
happened there, or did you know that happened, or or I might have a joke about it or a story." There's almost there's very few places that someone could say, "Oh, I'm from Dorchester, New Brunswick," and I would be
you
stumped.
have
Like I
a
I, I
right.
have. I would be able to, which I think is, but and again, part of that was from writing the book as well, but also,
Right.
it definitely stems from a curiosity, I think.
Curiosity. So, and all those tidbits, and amazing memory too,
Well,
because I think so anyway.
that's
Um,
kind.
I also have a nice story from you. A friend said, "Tell him this story." I said, "Okay." So, and about how kind you are out in public, because I've seen you out in public too. And I think, when people are kind of somewhat famous, Canadians are good at that, though. We don't really make too much of people, but you're very gracious when you're out and about. A friend was at a restaurant with her mom. Her mom was elderly. I think
Mhm.
they were getting up to leave, and you rushed right over and pulled the chair out for the woman and helped her down the
Oh,
stairs. And
oh,
they didn't know who you were at the time, but later they realized who you were, and they were just like,
oh,
"Wow, that was amazing!" So you're,
oh, well,
you know, and I think that your loveliness, if you don't mind me saying that, translates to when you are performing,
that's
which is
very
why I
kind.
think you're very loved.
Well, that's very
So,
kindly. So that means a lot
yeah.
coming from you, and the feeling's mutual. And to my mind, I guess it comes back to my upbringing. Yeah, it's how my parents,
Mm.
brought me up was to just, be like that. So it just, I never really crosses my mind to not.
To not be like
Yeah.
that. So you
Mm,
are, and I think that's one of the reasons why I love having these conversations, like about people's authenticity,
mm.
and you are who you are, on stage, off stage. You
That
know what I mean?
That's
It's kind
nice.
of
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful thing that you're doing, and that's why I love the name, the Soul's Kitchen, and I love the fact
thank
that
you.
you're doing exactly the same thing, which is just highlighting people and highlighting people's souls, and I love
The
that.
story, yeah, their story, or and so was your editing at GQ? Was that something like would you say that was a 9 to 5, or were you doing the comedian stuff when you did that as well?
Yeah, I was. So I was performing
Yeah.
every night, but I was uh it was a 9 to 5, but it was often longer. Like often the hours
Okay.
were very long. Often it involved, travel and working at weekends.
Mm.
There was definitely a period when I And so this was pre like having like a mobile phone.
Right.
I remember, so I would often, again, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm not proud of this, but at the same time, I wouldn't recommend any young people watching don't do. But I would sneak out of work early often. If I was getting a train to the north of England to do a
Right.
gig that night, I would be sneaking out at kind of 3 p.m. And it was a crazy thing because back then my boss might send me an email and I would reply to that email on the computer,
Mhm.
and I'd be waiting for the reply because I knew I wouldn't be able to reply again until
Right.
3 o'clock in the morning. And that's a crazy thing. Whereas of course now, I mean, you can reply from anywhere.
Yeah.
And I guess Blackberries were probably around at the time, but again, I didn't have one.
Right.
But there were definitely times when I would be in a meeting in my boss's office, and he would be talking about the next issue, and anyone got any ideas, and he'd go, James, have you got any ideas? And I would be looking at my watch, knowing that my train was, and I'd
Right.
be like, well, yeah, there is something. I'm just going to pop to the loo, and I'll be right back. And I would run out, grab my bag, and run out the door. I mean, it was crazy. And of course, the weird thing about starting in comedy is that I'm already doing a high stress, high pressure
Mhm.
job. My wife is also working in a magazine. She's also in a high stress, high
Okay.
pressure job, both of which takes us away from each other and from home a lot. And then it's such a weird thing when one day you say to your partner, oh, I'm going to take up stand-up comedy. So I know we don't see much of each other now, but now we're going to see a lot less of each other. And then your partner says, and then you also say, and if I'm depressed now, just wait till you see me now, because
Right.
when you do see me, I'm going to have been booed off stage 12 times in the last week.
Oh
And
my
then your partner
gosh.
says, well, at least we'll have a bit more money. And you go, no, we're going to have a lot less money because I'm not going to get paid at this for at least 10 years.
Oh my
And I'm going
gosh.
to be, and that was the thing. I mean, the cost just to,
Mhm.
I mean, as with all art forms, everything costs if you want to learn anything. And
Mhm.
unlike, there's no comedy university as such. So
Right.
the cost is you paying £50 to travel to somewhere 3 hours away, stay in a hotel, to perform for free to 10 people, and just
Right.
doing that over and over and over again until you get somewhere at it. So yeah, it's
So that, but that's because well, again, your calling or your desire, you had to,
yeah,
you just had to do it, and you listened
had
to
to.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
had to. Like I
Yeah.
knew stop. There's obviously times when I had bad nights when I would think about giving up, and there was
Mhm.
definitely times when I was wondering, again, I don't know if, again, it started to go well before it started to go better before I had kids, but again, maybe if I'd have had children earlier, I would have
Mm.
felt like what I was doing was this is the weird thing.
Right.
You question, am I being selfish? And I think this is the tricky thing with following one's dreams is at what point is one being selfish? Because it there isn't really a catch-all um kind of piece of advice. Like a lot
Mhm.
of the time you listen to kind of self-help books or podcasts,
Right.
or you listen to very successful people talking, it's always like, don't give up on your dreams and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but what if you're uh, a, a parent of
Mm.
three kids, and you should be supporting them, but instead you're on the road, dying on stage every night, and you're never home because of it. At what point is it a selfish move? It's a very fine line getting that balance right.
Absolutely, but I think you're right, and I think, but when people make those decisions, and even like when you say being selfish, I think the point is because what you're modeling, even for your kids, right? It's to do what you love.
Well,
But you're,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean, it.
and I feel like now I've found, like, I mean, I've been
Yeah.
very blessed to find this balance where this is the other thing I mentioned earlier, that I can't believe
Mhm.
that I do this for a living, but I also can't believe that I get to do it for a living, and have a very healthy, positive home life. And part of that is down to doing what I do in a place like New Brunswick, or being based here, where there is no built-in comedy industry per se, where you
No.
have to do things a certain way. Like, I book my tours based on where I want to go and when. So, like,
Right.
for the most, so for example, when I go
Okay.
away, I might go away for 2, 3, maybe 4 nights, but I'm not away for weeks at a
I
time.
was going to say you have your own schedule. You're in charge of your own schedule.
That's it. So I'm
Yeah, that's
completely
amazing.
like, and there are times where opportunities come up, and it's things that I really that career-wise or ego-wise I want to do, and I won't do them if my son's in a school play that day, or
Right.
so it's very interesting to be able to get that balance right. And I mean, there obviously are successful comedians in the world, and I guess by success who have healthy home lives, but it can be rare. So
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, congratulations, because I mean, I think that's amazing, really,
well, thank you
that
very
you're
much, Lisa.
doing both of your what you love and looking after your family and thinking about your family, and then you work with your wife on the magazine.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, it's
So
crazy
that's
that,
kind of fun.
yeah, it is, and it can be it can have its downsides when and you always have to kind of make rules. Like, and my wife introduced a rule that I'm not allowed to ask work questions in bed, because otherwise it's terrible.
That's
Because
good.
yeah, the first thing, these are literally questions that I asked. But like, I remember we woke up, the first sentence she heard in the morning was me saying, "Did you send that invoice to so and so?" That's not a healthy way to,
No, that's
and
not good.
so she
She's
says, wait
right.
till the office is open. That's what she said.
That's awesome. Okay, James, I have a few questions that I like to ask everybody on the podcast. Sometimes I tell you before, I didn't tell you before, but
No,
they're
hit
not
me.
they're
I
not
trust you
horrible questions.
implicitly, Lisa. You're a kind soul. Thank you.
Okay, so one, and some of them you've already answered, but sometimes the answers are different. So one question is, what makes you feel most alive?
Good question. I should say, like, I guess, playing soccer, or doing things with my kids, obviously,
Mm,
but and that's kind of the thing that I guess most people would say. But I mean, being on stage is the thing, like that,
okay,
and again, but the sound of 800 or 1,000 people laughing.
clapping and laughing.
Yeah,
Yes,
there's nothing like it, and you're just looking out and thinking, well, all of these people are not only feeling joy, they're not thinking about any of their worries,
they're
and
just having a good time.
yeah, and they've completely let loose, like they have, like, laughed. When laughter is like uncontrollable, that's what I love about it. You can't
Okay,
force it. Either someone's find something
right.
funny, or they don't. You can't, a laughter isn't an orgasm. It can't be faked. And I don't know. I
No,
never said that before, but that popped in my head.
but it's also contagious too. So
But
that's the
that's
fun thing
true.
about it. So
That's true.
one
Yeah,
person could,
and
yeah.
orgasms are not contagious. Unfortunately, this is good
Well,
stuff. This might find its way
you
into
know what
my.
I was just gonna say. This is good stuff right here.
Yeah.
You gotta work that in.
Yeah. I'm actually going to write that down. Thank
Write
you,
that down.
Lisa. This is
Yeah, you're
great.
welcome,
You're my
James.
co-writer.
You can reference me anytime.
Thank you very much. But
Orgasms are not contagious.
yes.
Just
So to answer your question, yeah,
yeah.
orgasm.
Okay.
Um,
Or maybe orgasms make you feel most alive too. I don't know. But
yeah.
anyway,
Yes.
that's the answer.
Exactly. Laughter. What was the first bit? So it was laughter.
It's contagious.
Yeah. And perfect. Um,
Orgasms are.
but yeah. So I would say what makes you feel, to answer, yeah, for most life is
Okay.
definitely being on stage and hearing that laugh. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. What is a belief that you've had over time that has changed?
That's an excellent question.
You can come back to it if you want.
No, I would say this in it's minor, but I mean, I guess, I guess I would believe I've had this. There's possibly a few things where, and it's a very good question, because I would love. I'm sure there's some other things where I've changed my views about, because there are things in life.
Mm,
One thing that I guess and again, this is not an infringement on anyone's freedom of speech, but I
mhm,
think I definitely thought for a very long time that, well, anyone should be allowed to say whatever they want on
mhm,
stage.
mhm,
I guess, and I would have always, and I've always still think that, and I've always said that. But I do now think that there are some things that people just shouldn't say on stage,
mhm,
and
mhm,
that has, as comedy has got more, like politics, more
mhm,
divisive,
mhm,
and often more hateful. I feel like even though anyone should have the right to say whatever they want, I'm more now of the opinion there are certain comedians that I've seen, on Netflix, say things where I just think, yeah,
mhm.
you can say that and you should be allowed to. I just don't think you should. And I think
Right.
something which has changed
Over
over
time.
time. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Awesome
Mhm.
answer. Is there something that you do now that your younger self would be proud of?
I mean, I would say uh, uh, earning a living as a comedian, I would say would be the
Mhm.
thing. And I guess in my 20s, I was quite a wild party animal, and I'm not
Mhm.
now. And I don't.
Okay.
I think then I possibly didn't know when I would break that cycle. So I think my
Okay.
younger self would be proud of how boring I am now. um,
Okay.
but I think the main thing would be like as a child and a teenager and a 20s, like my biggest fear was what if I don't end up doing
Mm,
comedy in some capacity,
right.
and to now be in a position where there's a roof over their head and there's food on the table because of telling
Of
jokes.
comedy.
I would say
Yeah.
that's the thing my young me would be most proud of.
Well, you're making people happy all around.
Oh, well, that's kind. Thank you.
One last question,
Hmm.
and it's just because of the Soul's Kitchen. I used to have a restaurant, and I was a cook, so
Oh, cool.
that's sort of how the name of the Soul's Kitchen
I
came
love
about.
it. It's a really beautiful
Um,
name.
and so, my question is, what is your ingredient for life? It doesn't have to be a food ingredient. It can just be like a word or something that you would think of as a special ingredient.
Good question. So, so it doesn't have to be a food. So,
It can be if you want it to be.
yeah,
Some
good
people have
question.
said gratitude, or something that is sort of a
Yeah,
one word theme that's running through their life.
mine would have to probably be um, wasabi
What's
because,
love it?
and I tell you why, because sushi is my treat. Like it's the thing that,
Okay.
like when I guess back in the day when I would treat myself with a beer or a cigarette when I was younger. Um, Now my treat is sushi. So it's like when I come back from a long period on the road and I come back and say
Mm.
everyone's out and I sit down, um, uh, my big treat uh, will be sushi, and there's never enough wasabi. So
Oh,
you can
that's
always
great.
eat, yeah, always need more.
More wasabi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing. But I would say my key ingredient, and I was thinking about this because I did exactly this yesterday. I just got back. Everyone went out for various appointments, and I put on a DVD of Andre Rieu, who is a classical violinist who
Mm,
puts on
mhm,
these huge productions, and I love his shows because they just exude
mm.
joy. And it's what I try and do with I think I watch him in the same way some comedians watch other comedians. I watch
Right.
Andre Rieu and go, he is bringing tens of thousands of people in these huge arenas and stadiums and squares in Maastricht, all of this joy. And that's what I want to do with comedy. It's why I often incorporate an orchestra or a choir into my
Mm,
comedy, because I'm trying to bring joy. So I guess my ingredient would be joy, in that I'm constantly in
mm.
pursuit of it for myself, and I'm constantly in pursuit of trying to bring it to other people. So
Oh my
joy,
goodness.
joy and wasabi. That's a good name for a book.
Yeah, well, there. Write that down,
Yeah,
James.
joy
Write
and
it down on your
wasabi.
list. That's
Beautiful. It's
awesome.
going down.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that is so great. James Mullinger, I'm so happy to have this conversation with you today.
Likewise, Lisa. Thank you so
Um,
much.
do you want to? So this is going to be going live a week from today, which is so
Wonderful.
April 9th. So I'm sure people know where to find you. So your books are out. I know you're on Facebook and Instagram too, or just Facebook.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah,
My handle for most things is James Mullinger or James Mullinger Comedian.
right.
And
People
my
can
on
find
my
you.
YouTube channel is James Mullinger Comedian, and I have
Okay, great.
five full length free stand up specials on there, plus
Perfect.
hundreds of other videos. But yeah,
I will.
come and
Yeah.
check me out on the road,
Oh my
people.
God. Yes, for sure. I'll link all of that on this when I post this.
Well, that's very
So that's
kind, Lisa.
amazing, James. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much, and
Okay.
I will come in and see you soon. I will bring a poster, and I'll bring
Oh
you
yeah,
a
please
copy
do.
of the book. I'll bring you a book and a
Oh, I
CD
love a book.
as
Oh
a
my
thank you for
gosh,
your time.
I
I'll bring
want it
these in.
all. Thank
I'll be there
you.
soon. I
And
promise.
I'll serve you a coffee.
Thank you very much. I
That's all
cannot
I can
wait.
do for
I
you.
love that new. I had it for the first time in what's it called? Begins with a
Cortado.
C.
Cortado.
Cortado. Oh my
Yes.
goodness! I had it at in Omakto maybe
Okay.
5 6 weeks ago. It's now my new favorite
I like
coffee.
it. Yeah.
So
Oh, awesome. I'll see
God
you
bless
there.
Cortados.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Just
Thank
stick
you.
around. I'm just going to end now, but we'll just quickly just talk after this. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you.